In the next edition of It's About Money, my guest will be Glen Kellogg. He was a guest for Hart's Grocers, but we'll be talking about Rochester Local Capital. Be sure to join us. Hello and welcome to another edition of It's About Money. I'm Nanette Nocon and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to have Glen Kellogg as our guest, and he is the manager of Rochester Local Capital. Glen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Nanette.
I appreciate that you had a lot to do and the one to be accredited for Hart's Grocers, and now I want to know more about Rochester Local Capital. Tell me about that organization.
Well, I am proud to say that Rochester Local Capital is sort of the mechanism that brought Hart's Local Grocers to be. Rochester Local Capital is a sort of a for-profit venture capital company for economic development. That's kind of it in a nutshell. In the last 10 years of my career, I've worked as an urban economist, taking a look at downtown master plans and comprehensive plans and providing economic support to those things that, as designers and city planners think about the future of their city, I look at market studies and talk to developers and business owners and help figure out how any of those hopes and dreams can happen and how you piece things together along the way. And in doing that, I watched a lot of business models of how do you do that, and how do you instigate and implement some of the recommended actions and investments that are required. There was an interesting case study in Asheville, North Carolina, that at some point I went down and visited the representatives of Public Interest Partners. And it's an organization that was doing amazing things in investing in small businesses in their community. But in talking to them, it was an interesting story that there was a gentleman who inherited a fair amount of money and wanted to put it back into his community. And he started making loans to small businesses, but quickly found that there were, aside from giving the businesses loans, there were roadblocks, that there was no place to put the businesses. So he quickly found himself in the position of having to buy buildings, renovate them, to put the small businesses in. So I thought this was a really interesting model, and they have successfully launched a number of important institutions now in Asheville. And I thought this was an interesting model because it's dealing with this the chicken and egg problem with the real estate and the businesses. So what Rochester Local Capital is hoping to do is try to bridge some of that gap and try to project manage through some of the hurdles and pull together well, first do market studies and understand what are feasible opportunities and good business plans, and what should be going into neighborhoods to help improve them. Where is the talent to operate those businesses? And hopefully in the future we'll be having that talent come to us, and we already are having people come to us with business ideas if we'd be interested in helping to fund them. So there's the talent, finding the right location, finding the capital to make it happen, and then ongoing business support. But the capital is, I think, the really difficult problem in a lot of small businesses and in a lot of revitalizing neighborhoods. And that's one of the things that we're hoping to bridge, that with a little bit of seed money from our company, we'd like to partner with local investors, as we do with Hart's. We put in 50% of the capital for Hart's and then partnered with local investors to make the rest of it happen. So if we can continue with partnerships like that and partnerships with banks for the debt side, we'd like to continue launching necessary businesses that make communities livable.
Mm-hmm. It's really investing in the community.
Yes.
And then you had, I know, going to your website, there were some 3 Ps. Can you talk about that a bit?
Oh, Well, the three Ps are about sustainability. And when you think about sustainability, the first thing you probably think about is green. You think about the planet. Obviously, if we're polluting the earth and doing horrible things to it, that can't go on for very long. That's not sustainable. Likewise, people, another P, are also important in the sustainability of a project. I guess through karma, you can't go burning people for too long without it coming back to you. But then also, the other thing that I think is frequently left out in conversations about sustainability is profit. That if you're not a profitable company, you're not going to be sustainable. That money has to come from somewhere. So there's an important act in balancing that, and we call it the triple bottom line. That the bottom line isn't just from the business side. The triple bottom line isn't just the profits. There are also the planet and people that ought to be considered in investments and in an ethical business.
Sure. And typically the sustainability, like you said, is equated to the planet. How does the planet, how do we not pollute the planet and keep it so that it's the same or better for the next generation?
But however you're doing it has to be profitable.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm totally with you. As a business owner myself, you know, being profitable is, you have to be, because you have to pay your employees, you have to pay the bills, you want to give discounts, but it has to, you can't discount the business down to shutting down, you know, in the future. So that's great. Now, I know your background you shared with us. What got you, are you from Rochester? And
I'm not, my wife is.
Okay, all right. So that's what brought you to the community, and you're coming back to Rochester, she coming back to Rochester, and you living here, it just kind of gave you there's only one downtown, so.
There's only one downtown, and it's a great downtown. It's got, you know, maybe it's a tired expression, but it's got great bones. There's so much there, and there's an enthusiasm here about downtown. People love this city, and rightly so. There's a lot to love about it. There's also a lot of work to do on it, and I think it's exactly the kind of community I wanted to work in.
That's great, and we're fortunate that people like you are thinking about that, to look at ways to make it so that it's creating profitable business, revitalizing communities by creating profitable businesses. I think that's wonderful. So, you mentioned earlier about recruiting local talent. So what have you discovered as you got to know Rochester? Is there a lot of talent here? Is there specific talent that's more dominant than others?
That's an interesting question. Right now, most of my experience with the local talent has been with our project with Hart's Local Grocers. Yes. And we found amazing people to work for us. There's a lot of great talent in this town. My view of it at the moment is a little bit skewed because it's really been in one industry.
Sure.
But we've had great luck. They're wonderful people to hire.
That's great. And I imagine with the local colleges and universities, and then I think there's a strong entrepreneurial capital in the community, in that people want to be entrepreneurs but may not know all the ropes it takes to fund a business, you know.
It's true. Well, I think there is a great entrepreneurial community here. One of the great things about Rochester is that it actually doesn't necessarily take that much capital to start a small business. And you're really seeing this in neighborhoods like the South Wedge, where there are low rents and a thriving sort of alternative culture there that is really producing some great businesses.
That's great. That's terrific. So let's see. With Hart's Grocers, they needed space, and the Rochester Local Capital provided funding to buy the space. Is that correct?
Yes. That Rochester Local Capital invested in 50% of the Hart's company, and then it turned out that we were planning on leasing space, and that didn't work out. We ended up having to buy a building. So Rochester Local Capital put together money and bought the building. So Hart's effectively leases from Rochester Local Capital.
I see. Okay. So it's great that you were able to...
But that's another sort of point of what the mission of Rochester Local Capital is there to do on the space side. We didn't expect to have to bridge this one, but this was another time that we needed to balance, we needed to make sure there was habitable space for this business that we're incubating, really. And so we bought the building so that it would be there for that tenant. Small businesses have, especially local small businesses, have a huge disadvantage in the real estate market and in capital markets. And in the real estate market, there's this chicken and egg problem with landlords, that you're a small business that would like to move into a neighborhood, but there's not much quality building stock. That the buildings that are there have been sitting vacant for maybe 10 years. And from the landlord's perspective, it's difficult for them to come up with money and invest in fixing that when the tenant coming in is not credited. It's a shaky business plan, and you don't know if they're actually going to still be there in 2 years. They've got legitimate concerns on making investments in that. At the same time, the small business can't afford the cost of cleaning up the mess that the building is in now, let alone their own tenant improvements. So you've got this chicken and egg problem that really is revolving around the credit of the small business. That then there's the rents that go with it as well, that if it were a national chain coming in, they'd be credit backed and there would be no problem in fixing it up and getting them in, which is obviously why landlords are hoping for national tenants and why they look forward to those leases. But in the cases where that's not happening, we need to find some way to bridge that gap. And that's what one of the things that Rochester Local Capital hopes to do, not necessarily by owning the property, but by being an intermediary with negotiating with landlords for perhaps having landlords participate in the business as equity to make the project happen.
I see. Very good. That's that's great, because like I said, it couldn't have opened without.
And then there's a second side of it that to complain about the injustices to small businesses is raising money. That large companies in raising money have access to many resources. Small businesses usually get funded by friends and family. Great big corporations don't have to rely on friends and family. They can go to the public and have public offerings and issue debt and bonds, and they don't have a problem raising money in the same way. But it's those small businesses raising $80,000 to $100,000 to get their business off the ground that's extremely difficult, and they can't go public. You can do a Kickstarter campaign maybe, but with Kickstarter, you're not allowed to sell equity or securities. In fact, that's exactly what the SEC is for, to the Securities and Exchange Commission, to protect consumers from fraud and to make sure that that investors are well informed and know the risks and are investing in sound businesses. The difficulty is that compliance with that is extremely expensive and then left to large companies. This is what was so exciting about the Jobs Act in 2012 with crowdfunding, that it was supposed to bring the promise of allowing small businesses to crowdfund and sell either loans or securities in their company to get their small business started. Unfortunately, with the way it's worked out, it's somewhat legal. That it's still, the guidance has been that it's now available for accredited investors, but not for the average city resident to be able to invest in small companies that way. At the same time, this is really hopeful, and Rochester Local Capital hopes to make use of, whether it's through our website or through another crowdfunding portal, the opportunity to let Rochesterians invest in Rochester businesses, I think would be a huge asset to our community and a huge, well, it would remove another roadblock to raising capital for these small companies to start businesses. From the investor side, it also says that right now, the way the system works is if you aren't even an accredited investor, most of the opportunities afforded are still investing in the stock market or bonds, but it would be wonderful if those people had a venue to invest back into Rochester. Now, there are angel funds and things like that that you can become involved in and invest in startups, in tech startups and biotech startups, are primarily what those are focused on, and manufacturing. But for the brick and mortar retail things that really make a city a great place to be, the other businesses are really important, but I feel like there are organizations that are doing a good job at investing in those things. We need someone investing in the basic services that make a city run. And so that's a role that Rochester Local Capital would like to play, is helping to match the local investors with local businesses.
Got it. So, and then also local needs, right?
And local needs, yes.
Yeah,
and to launch those local businesses.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. So thank you for sharing that. We'll take a quick break.
Sure.
It's wonderful. Thank you for sharing all of these. And we'll be right back. My guest is Glen Kellogg, and he is the manager of Rochester Local Capital.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
And we're back. It's about money. I'm here with Glen Kellogg, who is the manager of Rochester Local Capital. Glen, give us a quick synopsis for viewers who just joined us about Rochester Local Capital.
Sure. Rochester Local Capital is sort of a for-profit economic development company. We're trying to match local investors with local businesses that will be able to launch local businesses that will help improve the quality of life in Rochester.
Very nice. So, as an investor, because there's venture capitalists in Rochester or a lot of other communities, but for someone who's starting a business, have a business idea to improve the community as well, it's harder to reach those people. They may not know them. They may not know what's your vision of Rochester Local Capital filling that need for investors and potential entrepreneurs?
The big dream that the SEC won't let us live is that it would be wonderful if we could have really locally self-sustaining economic systems where instead of putting money into the stock market, you could put part of your portfolio directly into local businesses. And obviously there are regulations that prevent that it's difficult. The good news is that I think in the near future we'll be able to, at least with accredited investors, have the opportunity to invest in local businesses through either a crowdfunding website or through Rochester Local Capital's website. And we'll see how that unfolds in the very near future. We're in the planning stages of this right now, of trying to figure out a way that we can launch the local businesses that are missing in Rochester, that the sort of businesses that many of them are retail services, but they're the kind of local businesses that define neighborhoods. Things like Hart's Grocers that are needed services that are missing and that the most downtowns have. So as we're looking at those, but that are still feasible and have solid business plans behind them, and hopefully can be funded by local investment.
Yeah, so people can approach and check out the website for that. Yeah, okay. And how you need to have a lot of energy to go into, first the Hearts Grocers and then, of course, the Rochester Local Capital that we're doing in tandem at the beginning. How do you keep yourself excited about that? I mean, maybe this is a passion that you don't have to worry about that, but I just wonder, because, we have energy and sometimes the energy depletes. How do you keep that up?
Vitamin D.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of caffeine.
Yeah, okay.
It's true that it takes an enormous amount of energy, but it's something that I personally am really committed to and that I feel passionately about, and it's something that I think is worth doing. So that gets me out of bed every morning to push forward a little farther.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It's really being passionate about what you do, having meaning instead of self-serving. It's how do you serve the community and feel a need, and at the end of the day, it needs to be profitable at some point so that it can be sustainable.
So that so that I have food to continue on the next day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So you had mentioned earlier in the program that you felt pretty good about how people are proud of Rochester and there's a lot of opportunities. Do you see that growing? Because a lot of people ask about that, especially those who may not be near downtown. What do we tell our viewers who live in the suburbs but don't get a chance to go downtown very much?
I think there's definitely a growing enthusiasm and confidence in the market in downtown. You certainly see this in developers and increasingly in businesses. But one of the things that amazed me as I was moving here 4 or 5 years ago was that even the people in the suburbs still feel a strong connection to downtown. It's their downtown. And even if you live outside the city, you still feel like you're a Rochesterian. It's part of your identity. And you care about downtown. We care about downtown. And everyone is pulling for it and wants to see it work and wants to do what they can to help make it a great place to live.
Sure, and certainly it's the anchor of the county, if you will. You want a strong downtown. So
you do, but there are many places around the country that I've visited where, yes, we have our political problems and perceptions between the city and the suburbs, but I have to say they're not as bad as they are in many places. That, yes, there are things we need to work out and there are tensions, but it's not the same hostility that you see in many urban versus suburban communities. Everyone's pulling for the downtown and wants to make it work.
Sure. And I think it's so important, it's unfortunate that in 2014 and existing currently that Rochester is one of the poorest cities in the nation. And
that's remarkable.
Yeah, and it's truly unfortunate because there's a lot of opportunities, I think, that can be created. And one of having a strong downtown, I think, is important because in many occasions, like transportation is an issue.
Transportation is an issue, and thinking about issues that face downtown, the Community Foundation is holding Dialogues Without Borders. As I don't know if you participated in any of them, but it's a series of workshops where they bring residents and prominent people from the suburbs together with residents in the city to talk about different issues that are facing the city and prioritize them, talk about the difficulties, and start a conversation of seeing the other side's perspective, but also trying to find common ground and solutions.
That's great. The Community Foundation is a very important non-for-profit in town,
yes.
And that's great. I didn't realize that was happening. Shame on me. I was the board of the Community Foundation. So I think that
I thought you were leading into it. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's fantastic because if everybody pulls together and comes up with different ideas, and not only funding, not only ideas, but real estate, just a bunch of things coming together can help shape the community to make it better.
Well, and a lot of things have happened in downtown that there has been a huge influx in population, that the population in downtown is going up, that there's new investment there. Even as the population as a city as a whole may be declining, if you look at downtown, it's a different story, that there's investment there, and there are new businesses opening up, and there are new apartments being renovated.
Yes.
So I think things are looking up, and it's going to be an exciting near future for Rochester.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that this is the time to to get on board and help shape what that future is going to look like.
Sure, there might be some opportunities that are more affordable. Like you said, Rochester is an affordable city to get
It
started
is.
in a business, but if you get in right on the ground floor, it could be pretty good. So that's great. Well, I do want to thank you for your time that you spent with me talking about Rochester Local Capital and also talking about Hearts earlier, Hearts Grocers. I think those are great endeavors, and thank you for coming to Rochester and helping us create an organizations that will help the community thrive.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. And thank you, our guests, for joining us. My name is Nanette Nokan. It's About Money, and my guest was Glen Kellogg, who is the manager at Rochester Local Capital. Until next time.